Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
They are the CEO and co-founder of Revry TV, the first LGBTQ streaming platform. Today on Rainbow Country, Damian Pelliccione is my guest. That and more on episode 286, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Carol Pope.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Segato.
Hi, I'm Gord Depp of the Spoons. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto, and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada. So whether you're listening in the Yukon, British Columbia, the Prairies, the East Coast of Canada, in the Maritimes, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #2 LGBT podcast on Feedspot.com. So today in Hour 1, co-founder and CEO of Revry Inc., Damian Pelliccione, joins me in conversation to talk about Revry TV, the first LGBTQ streaming platform. We'll find out all about Revry TV, as well as having Damian tell us about being Hollywood's first gender non-binary CEO. Plus in Hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring a 3-song Canadian disco set, a 3-song Canadian punk rock set, as well as spotlighting LGBT artists, Santino and Tanya Hazel. So, when I return, we'll find out all about the world's first LGBTQ streaming platform, Revry TV.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Canada's LGBTQ2+ archives just released Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada. Order a copy from your local bookstore to dive into hundreds of loud and proud stories and photos of historical queer life in Canada from pre-1939 to today. Get your copy from your local bookstore. Out North, an archive of queer activism and kinship in Canada.
Hi, everyone. This is Mark Tewksbury, Olympic champion, leader, humanitarian. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Damian Pelliccione, hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am well. First and foremost, thank you for being here to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that. Let us start here with you, okay? Hollywood's first gender non-binary CEO. How does it feel being a trailblazer?
I laugh because I never really think of myself so much as a trailblazer, as someone who is just doing, I think work that is meaningful and gives myself perspective. I know that, hopefully what we're accomplishing with Revry is opening doors for others to do what we're doing in a bigger way.
So how does it feel being Hollywood's first gender non-binary CEO?
Yes. So I recently came out as non-binary about a year and a half ago, just at the beginning of the pandemic. I find myself very fluid in my gender expression. And when, I decided to adopt they, them, their pronouns for myself, it made a lot of sense to publicly speak out and be very open about it. If you follow on my Instagram or if you've seen me at events, right now I look very Steve Jobs wearing my turtleneck and my earring, but, I could be wearing a dress and heels and my handbag, depending on the day of the week that I feel a certain gender. And so I believe gender expression, the gender expression as a social construct. And I think one of the big things is non-binary is the future. And I believe that, being a voice, a leading voice in entertainment and in leadership, as someone who is publicly non-binary, hopefully is, again, like I said, my story hopefully opens up doors for other queer and non-binary folks who are out there who may be listening to this radio show right now.
So how do you think you will change up or shake up Hollywood coming out as being gender non-binary and being your authentic self and everything that brings? How do you think you will help to shake up that town?
Yeah, look, I think Hollywood in itself has been very binary up until, recently. I think there's been a lot of conversations, a lot of stories, a lot of content creators, filmmakers, musicians who are becoming more and more vocal and more public with their gender expression, whether that being, binary or non-binary or transgender. And I think one of the biggest things is that, Hollywood is ready for, I think, a new type of leadership and a new type of story to be told. And I think that by me using my platform and being as public as I humanly possibly can be and vocal and as loud as I can be, I think it will hopefully change folks' perspective on our community. And I say that because in a lot of instances, when I go to, whether it's conferences or I'm speaking on, more of the B2B panels, industry-driven panels that are not necessarily on the creative side, more in the business of, or more on the distribution or sales or marketing side, we still barely see any LGBTQ folks or any folks who are trans and non-binary sitting at that table or in that perspective of leadership. And so they'll see me walk in and hopefully, this is changing the way in which we are seeing what leadership can look like, walk like, talk like. And I think Hollywood's ready for it. Hollywood's been pretty much shaking up and is still being shooken up in a lot of ways. And I'm hopefully being part of that movement.
So you are the CEO and co-founder of Revry Inc., Revry TV, the first LGBTQ streaming platform. Talk to me about Revry and what this streaming service is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Revry, like you mentioned, is now the world's largest LGBTQ streaming network. We're co-founded by not just myself, but three other co-founders: Aaliyah J. Daniels, our COO, a woman of color, an attorney, an ally; Christopher Rodriguez, Hispanic, openly gay man, our chief business officer, also an attorney, former attorney for Shark Tank, actually; LaShawn McGee, who is also non-binary. They are our chief product officer. They are an Army veteran and a person of color. And they recently just came out actually as non-binary. So it's both 2 out of 4 co-founders are non-binary. The other 2 are attorneys. I always laugh. I think that's kind of funny. But we represent collectively non-binary, veteran, LGBTQ, women, African-American, Hispanic, immigrant-led communities, and that I think is very unique. I think that you don't see that type of leadership, and definitely not that ownership profile when you're looking at folks like us who are running a business like this at the scale that we are. And I think that's what makes us very unique, whether we're talking in a radio interview or we're talking to McDonald's, our biggest advertiser, or we're talking to a technology partner, or even a distribution partner like AT&T or Comcast in the United States. These we start from the place of our mission and who we are as the co-founders of Revry. We are mission-led and mission-driven. Today, Revry reaches over 300 million households and devices across the globe, with majority of our traffic coming obviously from the United States and Canada. What's really exciting is on the platform, you can discover the best, movies, TV shows, feature films, documentaries, music videos, news, and originals. We have over 5,000 titles to discover on our service, of which about 90% are available globally, not just in the United States. We've been downloaded in over 140 countries across the globe. And Revry has really become now the de facto global LGBTQ brand. And it's really exciting to have been leading this charge, because the biggest, I think, reward from all of this is that we see the impacts that media can have on our community and how it helps to shape hearts and minds. Specifically, I can point to a few different stories. When we first launched in 2016 and we were consumer facing, we started our push at San Francisco Pride, and we went up to Dolores Park. For the folks who know San Francisco Pride, it's where everyone goes and parties in a park on Saturday before the Sunday of Pride, and handed out flyers and, had our self-printed Revry t-shirts. And, I think we gave out 4,000 or 5,000 flyers that day. But it was, a lot of folks were like, what street marketing team do you work for? And I'm like, no, that's the CBO, that's the CEO, that's the CPO. They're like, wow, you really believe in what you're doing? We're like, yeah, we took it to the streets. Before we knew it, by the end of that weekend, we were being interviewed by Macworld, and that Macworld article had this tremendous ripple effect internationally. And we were published in over, I think it was 15 or 16 different languages. And the first letters started to come in over social media. And the first one for me was on LinkedIn from a queer man, Muslim man in Saudi Arabia, who said for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. And he saw himself reflected in XYZ film. And by watching that film, it was giving him hope to one day lead his authentic life. That letter I printed, I framed, it sits next to my desk. It's a reminder as to why I do what I do every day. And that wasn't the first. I even had a chance to be in Mumbai, India in 2019 at the Kashish Film Festival. which is the LGBTQ Film Festival in Mumbai, a territory and a place and a country in the world that I'd always wanted to visit, never had an opportunity to see. Here's my excuse. So I get to Mumbai. We'd actually had some traffic from India on our service in previous years because we had licensed a project called The Other Love Story. And it was a big lesbian, half Hindi, half English drama series that just did really well. It had tremendous numbers. And specifically viewership coming directly from India that we could equate to. And so 2 years later, here I am in 2019 in Mumbai, and all these queer female filmmakers at the opening night of this film festival were dying to meet me, and they were lining up and one by one introducing themselves. And it wasn't until about the 34th person who had introduced himself to me, where she pulls out her Tinder on her phone, all her Tinder, and I'm like, why are you showing me your Tinder? This is different. And she's like, I want to show you the impact that one series that you distributed had on our community. And she funnels for lesbian on the grid, or women who love women, with the exact translation. And all of the images were images from The Other Love Story. It was how they self-identify as queer women. And for context, they had just had their Stonewall moment in 2018 when they decriminalized being LGBTQ. And I nearly cried. I lost my shit, so to speak, and woke up Aaliyah, LaShawn, and Chris in the West and told them, look at the impact that we're having in this part of the world. Can we even imagine that, like, what we are building now is so much bigger than myself, than ourselves. This organization, has been doing things in the background that we don't even consciously know yet, to help, save, hearts and minds.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Very exciting.
To me, it seems as if Revry is, for a lack of better words, you've chosen a free option in regards to how people can consume Revry, as opposed to it's part of a cable package where, you have to subscribe to, this level, and then you get this channel that's a gay channel.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that genius move.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, we really launched first as a subscription video on demand product, meaning you'd need a credit card, you'd have to subscribe. But that was at a time in 2016 where really AVOD, or ad video on demand, or any type of free streaming wasn't, outside of YouTube, a thing. And it was, as we were receiving these letters, we were realizing, how could we democratize the ability for anyone within our community, anywhere in the world, to be able to watch this content, regardless of having a credit card or being able to afford a subscription, a monthly subscription. So, we rejiggered the app and redeveloped kind of what the experience looked like in 2018 to being free, where it was just ad supported. So you can watch almost all of our content in front of the paywall completely for free, but you have to watch ads. It's how we, obviously can monetize and keep the service running. And that move really was a huge social shift for us, because then, all these new viewers and consumers came to us across so many different countries and territories, and more of these letters started to pour in about, watching a trans music artist, or watching a lesbian comedy, or, their favorite titles, because we decided to break that barrier, so to speak, and offer the service outside of what you're saying, a typical cable subscription. We do have Revry Premium, which of course is our subscription service where you can watch without ads, but that is a really small percentage of our users. The majority of our users are folks who are watching for free, are not bothered by ads, and watching all the best content in one place, curated for our community.
Yeah. There's one documentary that I saw, which was based in Hawaii, about a trans woman there being part of the school system and keeping their heritage going there. And I caught it in the middle of the documentary, and I was like, this is so fascinating and so good and so well done. Like, the quality that you guys have is top notch.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. We pride ourselves on curating the best of the best content. And it's stories like that one and that really resonate the most. You know, it's nonfiction stories, these documentaries, the unscripted content seems to, really resonate the furthest, because you're looking at stories and moments of, folks' lives or struggles or, uphill battles, and you can emotionally, connect with them in a way, on Revry, whereas maybe you geographically can't, because you can't afford to travel to Hawaii, or never think to like talk to a Hawaiian queer teacher before, like that documentary that you watched, right? So you're able to have insight and perspective into, what other folks' lives look like in other parts of the world, who are part of our community. And I think what's really exciting is, Revry stands for queer culture. That's what we're really trying to shape and uplift with our platform. And culture is not one race, not one gender, not one sexual orientation, not one language. I think that's what's really exciting about queer culture, is that we are, so diverse and unique just in who we are as people.
And on that note, we will return after this Rainbow Country update.
Hi, I'm Eric Radford, Olympic and world champion figure skater, pianist, and composer, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra.
So at the beginning of the show, you may have noticed that I said that Rainbow Country is now heard on 12 outlets across Canada. Well, that's because Rainbow Country can now be heard in Prince George, British Columbia, on CFUR FM, community-powered radio from the Canadian North. And if you're, listening on the TuneIn Radio app, which I highly recommend, you can hear Rainbow Country from Prince George Mondays, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, and Fridays, midnight Pacific Time. Rainbow Country, coast to coast to coast.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Terra on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us, and of course our artists and the things that we do globally, and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Terra providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Keegan Hurst, former professional rugby player, coach, raving homosexual, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra.
You're originally from Canada, from Toronto.
Toronto.
What made you move to the States?
So I grew up in Unionville, Markham, suburb of Toronto. I went to performing arts high school, Unionville High for performing arts. I actually had the acting bug when had hit me very young, and moved to New York City in January of 2000. And then cut to 9/11. That was the catalyst that drove me to Los Angeles. I'd had a lot of friends who were already in LA. And so I decided to kind of, jump the coast, so to speak, and try my luck in LA. That was 20 years ago, this past October. So it's kind of funny to think how long I've spent in Los Angeles, where I probably thought when I originally started off that most of my life would be in New York City. Still love New York City. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. But yeah, no, I think, what's really interesting is my mother was a politician here in Canada. Father was, an entrepreneur, so to speak, built a family business with my uncle and my cousins. So I think I'm a real big cross section of both my mother and my father. And it makes sense that I would obviously become an entrepreneur myself.
It's in your blood.
And it's in my blood, and to try to lead, a social movement through entrepreneurialism, or socialpreneurialism, so to speak. That's my made up word. But yeah, it's, I love what I do. I think, there's a time in your life where you figure out, I think, what your true calling is and what you're really great at. And something that also you have passion for, but then fuels your inner soul. And I think with Revry, that has been, took me about 35 years to find it, but I was able to find it by then.
Let's talk about original content. Okay, Straight Boys, a short film of yours. That people can see on YouTube. It has over 270,000 views on YouTube. That's amazing. Yep. You mentioned earlier briefly, Revry TV has original content, correct?
Correct.
And so HBO a few years ago had a series called Looking. I don't know if you know of Looking.
Yes, I watched it.
Yeah, it's so good. A gay story, sort of like a gay Sex and the City type thing.
Yeah.
In Revry's future, or, maybe happening soon or maybe happening now, do you see Revry doing scripted LGBT stories that are serials? Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we already have quite a few. If you go into watch.revry.tv, our website, or any of our direct-to-consumer apps, there's an originals tab. And we have about 50 original pieces of content, half of which are non-scripted, half are scripted. A lot of the scripted content that we have has been either short form or feature films. We have a few series, full-length series. And we are pushing further and further into doing more and more scripted content. We're a baby company. We're only 6 years old. And I think, and we just turned 6 years since we had the idea, not even since we were consumer facing. This June 2022 will be 6 years consumer facing. And so part of it is to build a distribution, build a team, build the infrastructure. And just like any startup, raise capital. That's my job as CEO, which is always fun to do. And the goal, and what you're going to see coming out of the service, is a lot of original content, and some of which will be scripted series, kind of like you're mentioning, like Looking. I am excited to tell stories about communities within our culture that are so underserved. I wish I could tell you a few of the different stories that we've got coming out, but my communications department would kill me because we haven't announced a few of them. We will be in the beginning of the year. But
telling romance series or horror or science fiction that have LGBT main characters would, as opposed to just a sidekick somewhere, would be so impactful, and it would be so, I think, groundbreaking to have those.
Yes. Yeah.
And especially to have those in one place.
I completely agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's, kind of the thesis of our service, is to go to one trusted source to discover all that content and uplift all that content. But yeah, some of the stories we're going to be telling in the new year are some really, really exciting slices of life that I think that hit multiple genres, that hit multiple communities within our culture. And I think folks are going to be really excited about, the new slate of originals that we have for 2022.
So, Damian, let's get to know you a little bit deeper, more on a personal level.
Sure.
If you can, finish this sentence for me. And we're going there, but finish the sentence for me. Sexually, I would describe myself as
gay/queer.
Okay. Gay/queer. For yourself, what's the difference?
Predominantly
when using gay and when using queer.
Yeah. So gay is gendering myself, and I'm hesitant to use that word just because I do identify as non-binary. Queer or pansexual is probably closer to my sexual expression. But I am married to a man. So I am, in a relationship, a long-term relationship with actually our CBO, our Christopher Rodriguez is my partner of 14 years. We recently got married in October in Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake in Canada, actually, of all places.
And how is married life?
I always say I don't think it's any different than it was before. I just wear a ring now all the time. Nothing's really changed, I think, for us too much. But because we've been together for so long and been through a lot as a couple, but it's been, an exciting journey, and I'm glad that he is on that journey with me.
So you mentioned that you consider yourself gay/queer. For yourself, when did you start recognizing your attraction to men, your same-sex attraction, so to speak? Yeah. When did that start happening for you?
Definitely at a young age, I think. I always knew from probably birth, if not as soon as you can understand the concept of queer. I was lucky enough to grow up in a very liberal town, a very liberal place like Canada, and was exposed, even going to performing arts high school, to queer culture at a young age. And so it wasn't until I moved to New York City where I finally came out at 20 years old, 21 years old, and was able to, start to lead my authentic life.
And for your gender identity, you just mentioned you recently came out as gender non-binary. For yourself, Correct. When did that awakening start happening for you?
I think that, coming out as non-binary was during the pandemic, I was able to kind of assess I had always had a very fluid gender expression in my fashion, dating well before, taking that stance and coming out as non-binary, in 2020. And so I think affirmed, I affirmed my gender expression then and wanted to be public and be open about it. And so I decided, at the beginning of the pandemic that I publicly affirmed that my new gender identity and gender marker was non-binary, is non-binary.
So at the beginning of this interview, I said that you are Hollywood's first gender non-binary CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, and I don't know the answer to this, and maybe you do, and maybe I'm going to be educated right now. I don't know. But does that mean that being non-binary, being gender non-binary, does that mean you're transgender?
No, it does not. I think that's a a very normal misconception that a lot of folks have. Being non-binary is not being transgender. I am not a transgender person. Transgender people, it's very different than non-binary. It's interesting that in a lot of ways we're grouped together, but I do believe that the paths that people take to express their gender expression are very different. And there's not one way to do anything, obviously. And so, but I do not identify as transgender. And I know a lot of folks in the non-binary community who do not identify as transgender.
There you go. I learned something new. Because I don't know. I don't know that. And because
it's very new.
Because I've seen where people that are gender non-binary, they call themselves transgender, and others that don't. Mm-hmm. And then trans people that are transgender take offense sometimes. It's like you're encroaching on on who we are. So it's interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
So you recently got married. How long have you guys been together?
14 years.
And how did you meet?
We met in the most unconventional way. We actually met doing AIDS Walk Los Angeles. We were both team leaders for the businesses that we were working for at the time. And we met at a team leader workshop. And, for those who know AIDS Walk, whether it's New York, LA, Chicago, any of the major cities, it's very corporate, fundraiser where it's not necessarily just LGBTQ folks who are supporting that cause. And Chris was sitting across the table from me. I had stood up. I was working for a gay bar at the time and stood up and mentioned, "Hey, come do your fundraiser at our venue, and we'll donate back the revenue from the bar that we generate during your fundraiser." And he came up to me and took a flyer, and that started the conversation. And here we are now, 14 years later.
Wow. And you mentioned married life is no different.
Yeah, really. I always joke because I feel like, we got married this year for a number of different reasons.
Have you always thought of yourself as being married anyway?
I think we have, at least for the last, handful of years. We've probably already acted as if, or, been like a married unit. Now we have the legal protections of the law, and especially everything now that's going on politically in the United States. For us, we wanted to continue to have legal protections for both of us, in hopes that nothing changes, knock on wood. But, and we'll fight for that, as just like we did in 2008 and 2012 and beyond.
So for me, I watch Revry on Plex, the Plex.
Ah, cool.
Which is an app you can download. Yes. You can watch free content. If you have content of your own, Plex can act as a host type of platform.
A hub.
Exactly, a hub. Thank you.
Plex is great. We love the folks over at Plex. We actually we're helping them start their Pride ERG, their employee resource group, their Pride employee resource group.
Well done.
We've done that with a lot. We've done that with a lot of our partners. We've held either power events or start conversations at different organizations. And it's funny you mentioned Plex because we have a really great relationship with them. And they recently reached out and asked for our help in leadership in forming their first Pride employee resource group.
Well done. They have a live TV section now where they have a number of channels, one of which is Revry, and you just tap on it and that's it. You're just watching TV. It's great. So what other formats can people view, consume Revry? Other than, like, there's Plex, but what other avenues?
Yeah. Look, so no matter which app store you use, whether it's on your iPhone, your Android, your Apple TV, your Roku device, your Android TV, your Amazon Fire Stick, any of the devices that you can think of, we actually have our own direct consumer app. So you can type in, or even your Samsung Smart TV, you can type in Revry and the whole app experience pops up. There you can stream 5 live TV channels that we have available here in Canada, 6 if you're including US, including Revry Latinx, its first Spanish language channel, Revry Brazil, the first Portuguese LGBTQ channel, Revry News, our nonfiction network, and OML, or queer female focused network. So we have got, and then there's a whole bunch of on-demand content that you can watch completely for free in front of the paywall at any time. If you're in the United States, unfortunately, it's not available in Canada. We just re-released Hedwig and the Angry Inch for the 20th anniversary. You'd have to use a VPN if you're in Canada to watch it, because unfortunately we only have the American rights. But, what's great is no matter what device or what application or interface or operating system that you use for your laptop, your tablet device, your mobile device, or your big screen at home, we have an application on it where you can watch over 5,000 titles in our library.
You mentioned this earlier. You were touching on some up-and-coming projects for 2022 and beyond. How do you see Revry evolving as time goes along? Do you see more sort of like taking a Netflix type of approach where you start getting more into content creation? How do you see Revry growing over the next few years?
I think it's going to be a hybrid between, let's say Netflix and Vice. Vice for its non-scripted content and Netflix for its scripted content. I think that, advertisers now more than ever want to participate in queer culture, and they're looking for the right partners to do that with. Case in point, we brought on McDonald's in 2021 as an advertiser, and they fully underwrote a 90-minute variety show available globally called House of Pride. That's in our originals. It's an amazing show that we produced in-house that has everyone from Manila Luzon, Laganja Estranja, Shia Diamond, Sam Sui, the House of Balmain, the winners of legendary HBO's Max, all this amazing dancers, singers, writers, drag artists from across, Los Angeles and the globe, really, that we brought into the show. And it was the first time that McDonald's had really invested in long form content like this with a platform like us. So much so that they even put us on their billboard in Times Square during Pride season. And I was not going to miss that. So I flew out to New York because they put the 4 co-founders in that ad. The 4 of us were on a billboard in Times Square, which was very exciting to see.
Did you get a photo of that?
Very surreal. I have a video of it. You can go, I'll send it to you. You can watch it on my Instagram and see me in front of the billboard pointing out the ad.
Amazing.
Of course, the day that I went, it was raining. So it's a little wet. I look a little wet, but it was a really exciting, moment, I think, in the history of our company. Because how many folks can say that they've done that? And so, but it's looking at kind of that publishing world and the non-scripted world and how advertisers work so quickly, but then blending that into, new and original programming that is scripted. I think we're kind of baby steps into the original content space, and we're starting with the non-scripted programming and kind of working our way into more of the scripted programming. But this is a really exciting time in the evolution of television because, the way in which we watch is not one way. It's not just based on a cable subscription package that you have based on your geography, your zip code, or your, postal code. And so, now it is really about what device do you prefer to use the most? You mentioned Plex. That is where you interface with Revry, and I think that's wonderful. We live in about 45 different places that you can find us. And if you go to Revry.tv, you'll be able to find all the different apps or devices or interfaces that we exist on.
Well said. Well said. I have to say, Damian Pelliccione.
Yeah.
I have to say, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, no, it's such a pleasure. I love telling this story. I love telling our story. And it's a pleasure to meet wonderful folks like you who are evangelizing, creating content for our community, and especially uplifting queer entrepreneurs like myself. So we appreciate your work.
For more on the world's first LGBTQ streaming platform, check out the website, Revry.tv.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, head over to marktara.com, where everything is connected, and hit the archives banner. Don't forget to keep up to date with the show. Follow me on socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms, including Audible and iHeart Podcasts. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, stay well and stay safe.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.